This brings me perfectly to the next question, going back to our theme of fracture in dissolving solidarity. Is China taking advantage of this moment? Is Russia taking advantage of this moment? My own view is that China is perhaps, and maybe will make a bid for leadership. I'm interested in your view on that.
Yeah.
Russia perhaps different. Russia maybe perhaps playing more of a spoiler, which is just the dissolving of the solidarity, just maybe, in their interests, right?
Yeah. Be interested, of course, to those who follow China much more closely than I do, to weigh in on this and then do that. But what I've seen is that obviously China does see an opportunity, as it has, as it made its bid in Davos in 2017. After the inauguration of the Trump administration, to say, well, we can be the guarantor of international rules and so on and so forth. I think China is making a bid. It's undercut a bit by, China's lack of transparency about certain aspects of how this crisis started. The luster of China's aid is diminished as, Italians and Dutch and others discover that some of the things they've been receiving are defective or shoddy. But, notwithstanding that, yes, China is making the case that, in the absence of, or at least the diminished role of the United States, some major entity has to step forward. The European Union is still, I think, struggling. It's beginning to make some steps, in the right direction after a really problematic start in February and March. But whether Europe will also step forward to do it remains to be seen. But it really does raise this question. I mean, Ian Bremmer several years ago coined the G0 concept, right? What happens when you have a world order where there is no clear, you don't have a G20 that works, you don't have a G7 that works. The G2 or G3 concept of US and China, or US, Europe, and China doesn't take a role. What happens if you end up with G0? Right now we are living, I would say we're living in a G0 response, where Ian's thesis is being tested in real time with this. The Russians obviously, look, the Russians have always wanted not to eliminate American leadership in the world, because they don't seek to supplant it, but certainly they'd want to limit it. They'd want to cut it down to size. And they've been very effective both in the aid that they've provided and also in their information operations to really strike at this question of Euro-Atlantic solidarity, which is, to tell Europeans, different European states, why should you be damaging your relationship with Russia? Italy, Germany, Serbia, Hungary, why should you damage your relationship with Russia because other European countries want you to do it because they have a problem with Russia? What are you getting out of it? Where's the solidarity when in your time of need? So why should you do that in return? So I think you're seeing, as you said, the spoiler aspect of Russia using this to, instead of facing a Euro-Atlantic community of 800 million people with 20 plus trillion GDP, if they can begin to fracture that community so they can deal with pieces of it on a more equal basis, Putin channels his own internal Rahm Emanuel. Don't let a crisis go to waste, and he's definitely taking advantage of it for geopolitical consideration. It's a great piece that just came out by Eugene Rumer from the Carnegie Endowment, precisely on that point, that Putin is and the Russian leadership is looking for geostrategic advantage that they can extract from this crisis.